know you heard me on the radio. Flexing, she loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing, she loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K.
Scarlet Knights fans, welcome to another episode of Night Watch with your host Larry K. We are part of the College Huddle Network. You can find us on YouTube at Night Watch Larry K. If you come and join us on the YouTube channel, please click subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We've grown exponentially. We appreciate all your support. Remember, we are also available as an audio-only podcast, and you can find the Night Watch with Larry K podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. That's Podbean, that's Amazon, that is Google, that is Apple, that is Stitcher, that is iHeartRadio, that is Audible. Anywhere you get your podcasts, come check it out. Night Watch with Larry K. Now, I don't want to rehash too much the Washington game. We have a very, very big game coming up against the Nebraska Cornhuskers in Lincoln, Nebraska. Big-time game, a Big Ten foe with one loss to Illinois. An Illinois team, by the way, that's looking quite good. The way they played Penn State the other day, I caught a lot of the game. That's a tough, hard-nosed team. They were playing Penn State on the road. Difficult team to play. We've got them later in the year on our schedule. I think a lot of Knights fans had that circled as a win. I think we may have to reconsider as things come down the pike. But as of right now, that stands as Nebraska's only loss. Rutgers, meanwhile, 4-0 for the first time in over a decade. Off the recent victory against the Washington Huskies, I was at the game. Washington, you saw a little bit of my post-game if you're on YouTube. For those in the podcast world, you might not have heard it. What I said was I was at the game. Washington on both sides of the ball in the trenches looked massive. They were strong. They were physical. They knew how to move the ball. The quarterback, Will Rogers, very impressive. I thought he did a very good job of moving the ball between the 20s. Washington shot themselves in the foot a number of times, missing field goals, incurring penalties, things of that nature that thwarted their ability to win the game. If you watch TKR, and you should, the Night Report podcast, Mike Broadbent had an amazing stat the other day where it was a certain stat called post-game win expectability, essentially. What it is it analyzes the game and what occurred in the game and the statistical output of the game. And regardless of who actually won the game, it gives you a number of, if all things in that game had occurred the way that they did statistically, what is the expectancy that a given team would have won the game? And Rutgers had like a 3-point-something% chance of winning that game, all things considered, which is one of the lowest percentages for a winning team in years in college football, which just goes to show you how difficult those metrics were for Rutgers to come out with a win. That being said, I'm not one of these people that's going to sit here and consistently just chalk it all up to luck and all up to good fortune and act as if the only reason Rutgers was able to pull out a victory was because the Washington Huskies shot themselves in the foot. I won't do that because at the end of the day, Rutgers still did what it needed to do in terms of winning the game. What did they do primarily first and foremost? Well, first and foremost, they chopped the moment. And I don't want to sit here and sound like a mouthpiece for Greg Schiano or a cheerleader for the program. As much as I'm a fan, I keep it objective on this channel, and I'm trying to do honest journalism here. But the fact of the matter is that when Greg Schiano says that he wants to chop the moment, what does he say? He says the two biggest thieves are the past and the future. The more we dwell on the past and the more we dwell on the future, the less ability we have to focus on, immerse ourselves, and own the present. And the fact of the matter is that this team against Washington completely embodied what Greg Schiano was talking about when he's talking about chopping the moment. This team was able to hunker down despite the play that had just occurred, despite the play that might occur later, despite how the game had started, despite how the game might end. This team was able to, on certain plays, execute at the right level to bring the victory home. Now, there was luck involved in terms of Washington shooting themselves in the foot, running onto the field during a field goal block, things like that. But Rutgers was able to capitalize on that. The very next play after the Huskies got the blocked field goal penalty, Ethan Kaliakmanis throws a beautiful pass to Ian Strong near the back of the end zone, the side of the end zone, and converts for a touchdown. When Rutgers got into the red zone, when Rutgers had to execute a play and hand the ball off to Sam Brown, Rutgers executed in the moment, chopped that play, and brought home 3 touchdowns, which was enough to win this game. On defense, Rutgers let up some serious plays, but when push came to shove and it came time to have a goal line stand, they did it. When it came time after the goal line stand to execute so that Rutgers was not backed up to their own end zone and wasn't losing the field position battle, Kyle Monungai springs a long run to get to midfield to flip field position. The fact of the matter is that while luck is involved in every game, and while that was a really interesting game and Washington is a very good team, at home with the crowd behind them, and by the way, I'll say it again, excellent, excellent, excellent game day production by all of the staff at Rutgers University. The halftime show, the band, the music, the lighting, everything. Just top-notch experience. I know there's been some talk out there that the crowd wasn't as engaged. I mean, if you're comparing it to end of the season crazy games that so much is riding on, that may be true. But at the end of the day, the crowd, I thought, was more engaged than I've seen it in years. And I'm right up there near the sideline, and I was getting loud, and everybody around me was getting very loud as well. I thought there was a certain effect on the game. Greg Schiano seemed to indicate as much in his post-game presser. So I wouldn't overlook the engagement of the crowd at all in that game. I thought the crowd did its job. I thought the game day atmosphere did its job. Ethan Kaliakmanis, 14 of 24 for 115 yards and a touchdown. Stellar stats? No. But enough to win the game? Yes. Eliminating turnovers? Yes. I thought Ethan came out a little rusty. The nerves might have been to him the first 3 passes, but he settled down very quickly, was very efficient, and you got to account for the fact that there were a few drop balls in there too that might have gone for touchdowns even. Kyle Monungai, 25 carries for 132 yards, averaging 5.3 yards a carry, 1 touchdown. Sam Brown carried 5 times for 44 yards, averaging 8.8 yards a carry, 1 touchdown. Ethan sprung a run or 2 when he needed to, which was effective, one of them for a first down. End of the day, Washington did a pretty good job defensively on most plays. But like I said, chopped the moment. Kyle Monungai was averaging 5.3 a carry and Sam Brown 8.8 because despite all those short runs that were stuffed, they broke off enough runs to even it out there, and it adds up. And those are the things I'm talking about when I'm saying it wasn't just exclusively luck in that game. But Rutgers now has quite a challenge, right? I have been correct in my predictions for Rutgers football over the last 17 games, I believe. Every game last season, including the bowl game, and then the first 4 this season. I predicted accurately who would win and who would lose that game. Sadly, Rutgers fans, I am going into this game having predicted preseason that Rutgers would lose to Nebraska. At this juncture, I'm not changing it. Don't turn off the podcast. Don't turn the channel off. I'm just trying to give you my legitimate analysis here. I am a fan, and I want to be wrong, and I think Rutgers obviously has a chance in this game. There are things Rutgers can do to win this game, and if Rutgers were to win this game, I think it would be a huge step forward. That's not a revelation to anyone. It's just me giving you my perspective, which I think we all share. Rutgers still with only a few votes in the AP poll. I know that would change drastically if they were to win in Nebraska. But this is going to be a tall task. I did mention I'm part of the College Huddle Network. A colleague of mine, TJ Burkle, also a member of the College Huddle Network with the Common Fans podcast, who has a piece in Sports Illustrated this week. So if you go to Sports Illustrated and search Nebraska Rutgers, search Larry Crane. I was featured in a Sports Illustrated article this week discussing and previewing the Rutgers-Nebraska game since TJ interviewed me to discuss the game. And I was able to break down some of the things and some of the keys to victory, if you will, for Rutgers. I have to be honest, guys. I'm a little bit wary of our defensive performance thus far. Yes, we've bowed up. Yes, we've chopped the moment when we needed to. Yes, we've made certain stands when we needed to at key moments, and we have so far been 4-0, and we deserve to be 4-0. But at the same time, the lack of quarterback sacks, we have some quarterback pressure, and we've gotten there. But I don't even want to exaggerate that. It's not as if we're consistently getting pressure on the quarterback and just slightly missed a sack. It's more like we get pressures on the quarterback occasionally, and we still can't get a sack. Obviously, that doesn't tell the whole story, because Wesley Bailey, since he's been back, I think has been a bit of a force there. The Virginia Tech game, when he's backing drones up in his own end zone and he causes a safety, that's as good as a sack. I mean, as far as anybody's concerned, maybe not on the stat sheet, but on the score sheet, it counted like it was a sack in the end zone. But we just haven't been able to get home. Will Rogers was right in the grasp of Lewis last game. I was standing right there. He touched him, he held him, and Rogers escapes and converts a pass downfield. Very, very frustrating. I think the linebacker play, and that includes all of the linebackers, the young guys, Moses Walker, Jabome, sometimes taking bad angles, sometimes not seeming like they know exactly where they need to be on the field. And then even Tyreme Powell, who I believe Tyreme is working his way back into the lineup, working his way back into being healthy. But Tyreme Powell not being at 100% as far as I can tell, I think is showing now. Now, he made a big play in the game against Washington, and I expect him to reattain his prior prowess from the last few seasons. But when you're coming off two major injuries this offseason like he is, it's going to take a little while to get back into the swing of things and to be playing at 100%. So I'm not faulting these players individually, because I think they're all giving effort, and for one reason or another, whether it's coming off an injury or whether it's being young and learning the position, especially learning the position in real game action so far, it's not going to be easy to get to the level that we were at last year. But as of right now, they're simply just not there. You don't have the same shut down second level in the defense the way you did last year, when you had Jennings, you had a healthy Tyreme Powell, and you had Mo Toure. And I think in more ways than one, we are feeling the absence of Mo Toure. Now, this isn't a throw in the towel, we're done, forget about it type of deal. This is just me giving you my honest opinion on why I think the defense is struggling a tad. Now, much like offensive lines, defenses and defensive lines, including linebackers and front sevens, need to gel with each other to understand and play off of each other and kind of get an instinctive muscle memory sense of where to hit certain holes and where certain gaps are, and how teams are going to play you and where the strengths and weaknesses on given plays are on your defensive line. And I think we'll get there. I think every season is a work in progress. I remember when I played ball as a kid, in high school, and you're starting the season, I was a wideout. The wideout room is, as soon as you put your shorts on, you're catching the ball, it's all a breeze. Then you put your helmets on, you put your pads on, all of a sudden you're kind of adjusting, you're not catching the balls fluidly, you're not running your routes as good. But by the end of the year, everybody, even the water boy kids who just put their helmets on here and there, they're out there catching the ball effortlessly, because the season is a work in progress itself. And I expect Rutgers to attain that level of, a higher level of playing by the end of the season. But as of right now, I know that was a long soliloquy referencing I was borderline water boy, to be honest with you, because I didn't put the effort into it. But referencing, I digressed, because my point is that I'm not convinced as of right now necessarily with respect to this defense, and I want to be. And this is a great opportunity for Rutgers defense to really show up and do what they need to do to turn the corner, which would, I think, result in Rutgers having a huge win. Now, I got the chance to speak to TJ Burkle about Nebraska, and I got to ask him some questions. And I will go over some of the questions and his answers with you, because I think it's an interesting way to kind of get a perspective on Nebraska and what we're going to be up against. So I asked him first and foremost about Matt Rule, and those of you, you should all be familiar with Rule. Obviously, having turned around Temple and Baylor, and then he had a stint in the NFL with the Carolina Panthers. Matt Rule came to Nebraska with a lot of fanfare and a mandate to turn the program around. Now, TJ discussed the fact that the Cornhuskers have not been to a bowl since 2016, We know that the Huskers have had a couple down years under Frost and their other coaches that they've had come in and out of there. They quite frankly have not lived up to the usual expectations as a traditional program that they had prior to the last several years. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Is recruiting down? Is it the Nebraska of old? I think a lot of people would say probably no. But I think Nebraska fans believe that they can get back to some semblance of that proud program. And Matt Rule, according to TJ, has gone a long way in getting them there. They thought they could get anywhere up to 10 wins going into the season. According to TJ, and that was, that varied, 8, 9, 10 wins. He said 7 to 9 wins at this point would be satisfying to many Nebraska Cornhusker fans after seeing how the team was this season, seeing what they could expect and what they could do. Their goal is to get to a bowl game, but their goal surpasses that now as they've seen their highly touted 5-star quarterback, Dylan Raiola, hit the ground running. I asked TJ, has Dylan Raiola lived up to the hype? He was extremely hyped coming out of high school, extremely highly rated recruit. We heard Greg Schiano talk about Raiola a little bit, and what he said was that, he can't even really play him as a defensive-minded coach the way he would necessarily game plan for a true freshman quarterback usually, because Raiola has been so impressive out on the field that he's really not exhibiting all of the things that a true freshman quarterback would exhibit. And he's a talented quarterback, and despite his youth, he's not necessarily playing like a youthful young quarterback. TJ said straight up to me, Raiola has been as good as advertised and possibly better. He's already transformed the offense, which was one of the worst in the country last year. He's been helped in that regard by a veteran offensive line and several playmakers that were added in the offseason. And that includes wide receivers Jamal Banks and Isaiah Neer and running back Dante Dowdell, who were all added via the transfer portal. They also have a tight end. Greg couldn't say the name. I don't know if it's the name Fedone or Fedoni, but he had some injury problems, and he has rebounded in a big way, and he's been an important part of the offense as well. TJ told me that Nebraska has struggled at times in parts of games. I think that sounds familiar. I think we've seen Rutgers struggle at parts of games, right? The third quarter against Virginia Tech, honestly, some of the third quarter against Washington until we were able to convert that touchdown. I think there's been times where Rutgers has been dominant and really on point, and then times when they haven't. TJ told me that Nebraska, the Cornhuskers, have been at times dominant and at times not dominant. They dominated the first half against UTEP in Colorado, but were a bit sluggish in the second half of both those games. The team largely took care of business against Northern Iowa. No surprise there, but it was a bit sloppy. So even against Northern Iowa, Nebraska had some sloppy play. They battled against Illinois, but the defense got outplayed, and that's not something that they're used to under Matt Rule. So I then asked him, hey, what's Nebraska fans, what's their general perception of Rutgers? And I think, like you might expect, he said a lot of Husker fans, when Rutgers first entered the Big Ten, they discounted Rutgers, right? And I think a lot of programs discounted Rutgers, and they didn't think they would ever be a formidable force in the conference. But like I've heard from many other Big Ten fans, like I've heard from fans across the country, and not just fans, but journalists and those who cover other teams, there is a lot of respect across this country. And there's a lot of respect across college football for Greg Schiano and what he's done for this team. And Rutgers as a program under Greg Schiano, they have a lot of respect, and they are a bit apprehensive about this game in some ways. TJ told me he's expecting a street fight between Nebraska and Rutgers. He said generally, I asked him about the Big Ten and joining. I love being a part of the Big Ten. I absolutely love the community we have with the Big Ten. I've been on Zach Guggenheim's Big Ten football talk show several times. There's just a lot of great community and analysis and passion fans in the Big Ten. TJ said, this is their 14th season in the conference. It's been an adjustment because he doesn't have those regional rivalries that they were used to. I think a lot of us can relate to that too. And it was fun to recapture. I talked to Brian Siegler, obviously on the Boundary Corner about the Virginia Tech game, and it was fun to recapture some of those regional rivalries. But he said he's excited about, not only the current state of the Big Ten, but also playing these West Coast teams. And now we have a big showdown with Rutgers. This East Coast Big Ten team coming out with those black uniforms the other day on national television, setting it off with that crowd and winning against the national runners-up from last year. And we have a big game. So I asked TJ, I said, in what areas do you think Rutgers matches up well against the Huskers? And what areas do you think the Huskers match up well against Rutgers? And I asked him what he think would decide the game. And he said, Nebraska's currently number 15 nationally in running defense. And Rutgers is 12th ranked in a rushing attack on offense. So he watched a lot of the Rutgers-Washington game on Friday night, and he was very impressed by Monungai. And the Huskers are going to have to contain him. No surprise there. He said the defense of Nebraska has been very good overall since Matt Rule's arrival, but one area that hasn't been great has been getting off the field on third down. So if Nebraska can contain Monungai and make third down stops, he likes their chances. But if Rutgers can get a lead and hold it and play the game they want to, controlling the football, it's going to be tough for the Huskers. He's worried about special teams. Nebraska has had a couple field goals blocked leading up to the game. And right now they're actually doing better than they are used to. They're +5 in the turnover margin because they've been taking better care of the football. Now, Greg Schiano, he worries about his teams have been very good at taking away the football. But while we took the football away a bit in the first few games, we obviously did not take the football away against Washington. But the key play against Virginia Tech obviously was Robert Longerbeam taking the football away in part is what helped seal the game against them. So we're going to have to try to flip the field and get Nebraska off schedule a little bit by turning the football over. I asked TJ who the biggest playmakers and strength areas for the Huskers were, biggest weakness, biggest strengths. He said Raiola mentioned that Raiola is the straw that stirs the drink. The offense centers around Raiola. Wide receivers Jamal Banks and Isaiah Neer have been his leading targets. And Ja'Cory Barney is an exciting, electric young player who they like to get the ball to in space. So look for Barney to jet sweep, reverse type of plays. He says areas of weakness. Nebraska's areas of weakness are special teams have been a major issue. Multiple missed field goals, including 2 that were blocked against Purdue. Part of that's due to injury to the first-string kicker, but the 2 blocks last weekend appeared to be the result of bad snaps, so he's a bit scared of their special teams prowess. Schiano, if we've known one thing about him, he's able to take care of special teams weaknesses throughout history, and hopefully we can do that against the Huskers. And he expects the atmosphere to be absolutely electric this year. He says it's been electric all year. The program is rejuvenated. They're excited about Matt Rule. They're excited about this quarterback. And he expects a battle on Saturday. He thinks that Nebraska's playmakers will make the difference. He predicts a final score of Nebraska 31, Rutgers 21, and he said that would be the result of a late score, making it look more comfortable than it actually was. He thinks it'll be a close game throughout up until the end. Here's the deal, right? Dylan Raiola is a good quarterback, and the offense runs through him. Nebraska had a difficult time running the football against Illinois. And they didn't get any offense going at all. I mean, literally almost nothing, and didn't score early against Purdue. And then obviously they won comfortably towards the end when they got things going. There's an opportunity here for Rutgers. There's an opportunity here for the Rutgers defense. If you can slow the run and contain the run, which Nebraska hasn't been great at all year as it is, and you can force the game to be completely on Raiola's shoulders. Now, they want the game to be on Raiola's shoulders. He's the superstar. He's capable. He's beyond capable. They want it to be on his shoulders anyway. But if there is no outlet and there is no resort for the Huskers to turn and feed the ball somewhere else, and it has to be on the shoulders of Raiola, there is an opportunity for this defense, as good as he is, to try to find a way to defend against a true freshman quarterback and turn the corner, both against the run as an initial step and then against a superstar young quarterback as a second step. And if Rutgers can stay on schedule, right? Nebraska has not been able to get off the field on third downs. Why do you think that is? Why do you think Nebraska has not been able to get off the field on third downs? It probably has a lot to do with the fact that teams get on schedule against them. And if they're on schedule and the run game is getting handfuls of yardage per carry, then they can convert in third and shorter or third and manageable situations. Exactly what Rutgers wants to do is stay on schedule. Rutgers wants to run the ball and impose its will, but they also want to take passes and shots when they need to, intermediate passes, and then a deep ball occasionally. Now, I was almost surprised we didn't really see deep balls against Washington, but they played it smart. They stayed on schedule in the drives they scored. In the drives they didn't score, it looked like they were having a lot of trouble. And that's kind of been a trend at some points on some drives this season. Although overall, I think Rutgers has really been efficient. Very efficient at handing the ball off and then using the passing game smartly to stay on schedule and to work their way down the field. I think it's really been a revelation how much just a consistent, accurate passing game can elevate the Rutgers offense. And I think it's been there all year. So if Rutgers can stay on schedule against a Nebraska defense who has struggled on third downs, I think they have a much better chance in this game. And that's for two reasons, right? That's number one, because you're keeping the game where you want it, which is a back and forth game that you can exploit by controlling the football and controlling time of possession, keeping the ball away from the hands of a talented young quarterback. And on the other side, that's a good way to take the crowd and the enthusiasm and the energy a little bit more out of the stadium, which could help work in Rutgers' favor as well. But our defense this year has been known to let up some major big plays. And with this quarterback, these talented transfer receivers, this talented tight end, Nebraska is going to be able to try to hit on big plays and try to put the ball in their hands of their young playmaking quarterback and beat us that way. And our defense has got to rise to the occasion. You have got to put pressure on a young quarterback. And I think even more so than applying consistent pressure is, some variability in the looks that Raiola is going to get from our defense. You want Raiola to have to see things he's not had to process yet as a freshman quarterback. Get pressure on him, but give him coverage looks and post-snap changes in coverage and post-snap hybrid type looks that he's going to struggle with. And then have the fact that our diversified defense with these players that are, quasi-safety, quasi-linebackers, use that to your advantage to try to confuse or at least give a young quarterback a little bit more of something to think about than he's had to in the past. Now, if you can get some pressure and hurry him up, all the better. That's going to make things even better for Rutgers. But at least try to give him some looks and play that game. And I just think, as usual, Rutgers' offensive line has to show up the way they've been showing up all year. It all starts in the trenches, especially on offense with us this year. You got to run the ball. You got to give them something to think about, and then you got to have an efficient passing game. Ethan Kaliakmanis has experience starting in this conference. I saw his nerves for 3 passes against Washington in that environment, and then it completely subsided, and Ethan was on point, and Ethan was accurate, and Ethan did everything he needed to do. Let's do that against Nebraska. Now, I've heard everything on the spectrum about this game from, Nebraska being really good at home and Raiola being so good that it's going to be difficult for Rutgers, especially with our defense, all the way to Nebraska is nowhere near as good as, Washington and might be as good as VTech, if that. and we should impose our will on them, and that's that. I think, given what we have seen this year so far, I'd like to think that Rutgers offense will be able to efficiently move the ball and do what they need to do to a certain level. Nebraska, as TJ pointed out, has had a pretty good run defense. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Now, are they as good as Washington? I understand Washington has 2 losses, but Washington was absolutely beastly up front on both sides of the ball. I saw them in person. They were quick. They were physical. Is Nebraska as good as them? Because despite the fact that Washington was able to stop us on several runs, Kyle Monungai and Sam Brown both had high averages per carry and both got the job done in overall yards. Well, at least Kyle did, and really were the difference in the game after all. I mean, I know there were, another thing that was a difference in the game was obviously Washington's mistakes, obviously Kaliak Manis's touchdown pass, but if you really think about it and look at the stats, Rutgers still ran the ball the way they wanted to run the ball, not every play, but overall. And so if Nebraska's defense is not as good at stopping the run as Washington was, then what's going to happen? I mean, Rutgers should be able to run the ball and do what they have to do. But when it comes to this defense, not only have they let up big plays at times, but they haven't been stellar in all the areas we need them to be stellar. So now you're playing against a quarterback that can throw the ball, who's very talented. Now, we've played talented quarterbacks. Drones is talented. Will Rogers was very talented. I was very impressed with him. And even Scroggins got outside the pocket, but these are the guys that we have struggled with. Every one of those guys, regardless of skill set, we've struggled with them at some point in every game. And even in Akron, we gave up a long touchdown pass. So I just think that, and I think we gave up a long time. Sometimes late at night when I'm just riffing, it's hard for me to remember every game. So if I'm wrong, just call me out, will you? People have no problem calling me out when I misspeak, so just go ahead and call me out, all right? It's all right. But we've struggled with quarterbacks this year, making big plays here and there, even when overall we've had a good game. So now we're going up against a very talented quarterback. Now, he's not Will Rogers because he doesn't have the experience, but he has a heck of a lot of athletic talent. Can our defense turn the corner? And I think that'll be the difference in the game. How much can our defense stop the run effectively, which we've struggled with? We've struggled with terribly. How much can the linebackers turn the corner? How much more space and blockers can the defensive line eat up? Can they turn that corner? Can they do those things at all at the level they need to win on the road against a Nebraska team that's looking pretty good? And then if they can do that, can they contain this talented young quarterback? I think the offense will show up. I think the offense will do what they need to do. But in that type of environment, you got to play complementary football. It's really, really important. So my prediction is staying as it was. I do predict a loss for Rutgers. I predict a field goal or a touchdown loss. That isn't because I'm down on the team this season. I'm high on the team this season. I'm still high on the team. You know my prediction, and if you don't, go back and look at it, but I did predict this as a loss. It's hard for me to move off of that until the defense shows me something. Now, I hope the defense does show me something. If the defense shows me something, I think we have a good chance of winning. And if I'm here post-game talking to you guys and I'm happy and I'm ecstatic and I'm having a good time, it's because our defense did step up, and they're capable of doing it. The personnel we have, the coaching we have, they are capable of doing it. I just haven't seen it yet this year at the level we're going to need to beat Nebraska. So I have to go with that, but I do expect a good game. I do expect another respectable showing for Rutgers. I told you what I think they need to do to win the game. Let's hope my prediction is wrong for the first time in several games. Whether it is or whether it's not, I'll be here post-game with you guys. I will be with you next week. I'm trying to get, I will continue to try, because I did it with TJ, I did it with Brian 2 weeks ago. I will continue to try to get insiders from our opponents on the show and give you my perspective as well as recap the current game. I'll continue to do that. You guys have been awesome supporting the channel. Go check out the Sports Illustrated article written by TJ previewing Nebraska versus Rutgers. If you just search Nebraska Rutgers Sports Illustrated, Larry, it'll come up. Go read that and check out my answers to Nebraska and what I think about Rutgers and Nebraska and the matchup. And if you haven't done so yet, come to the YouTube, Night Watch Larry K, and click subscribe. Your support is very, very, very much appreciated. And remember, always available as an audio podcast on Podbean. Check it out. Go Knights. Larry K out.